Undertale. Fandom that has grown a tremendous reputation, much like another certain indie game that everyone knows, loves, and mostly hates. But enough of that. Undertale has grown itself quite a reputation by going to other fandoms or just using other clips, pictures, whatnot, and Undertaleifying them. And it's come to my attention and many others that Undertale fans and their fandom really like Versus series, and aside from Undyne and Sans, who I would say undoubtedly are the most common characters from Undertale you see in a Versus battle, there is one that many Undertale fans consider to be the end-all be-all character that cannot be defeated by any other character in a Versus battle. And that is Omega Flowey. Now, my attention was drawn to this by a picture on DeviantArt where I got into a nice little salt baiting argument with a very, very sad Undertale tard, and that resulted in me critically thinking, Omega Flowey versus Godzilla. However, because of Godzilla's various incarnations, I will be going over 3 Godzillas more specifically, these all being Godzillas from the movie, so these are not video game incarnations of Godzilla. These are going to be Godzilla 90s, this is Godzilla 90s, after Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Godzilla 2000, or the Megaguirus Godzilla, and the GMK Godzilla. Now, let's get started with Godzilla 90s. Now, we've got Godzilla 90s, of course he's 100 meters tall, 60,000 metric tons. He is near indestructible, super strength, good at hand-to-hand combat, more experienced at range combat with a blue atomic breath, his nuclear pulse, his spiral breath, his blue spiral breath, and his obviously red spiral ray. He also has energy absorption. Notable feats include having the ability to reverse the electric polarity of Mechagodzilla 2 when they first encountered each other. He also survived being dropped from a high altitude into water twice, both being in Godzilla vs. Mothra, the Battle for Earth, and Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah when he fought Mecha King Ghidorah. That should also be mentioned that although these are not extremely large weights sat on top of him, he also had to deal with the fact that both Batra and Mecha King Ghidorah fell on top of him when they landed in the water. He also survived having acid covered on his head and the bite force of Biollante, and survived falling into a volcano and came back even stronger than ever in his Gen 1 form. However, we should also note that the events of Godzilla vs. Biollante were not retconned by the Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah timeline, as such that feat still applies. I should also note that he survived planetary level attacks from Space Godzilla, who is definitely planetary as stated in the manga version of the film. However, the manga version does have differences in events compared to the movie, but feats as well as the kaiju fight itself still applies. Next we've got Godzilla 2000, or more specifically Godzilla 2001, depending on the English release. However, this is the Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Megaguirus, being 55 meters tall, a lot smaller than the Heisei Godzilla, and only coming in at 25,000 tons. Obviously near indestructible, super strength, the atomic breath. However, I will be giving him his nuclear pulse, although he did not display this ability in the Megaguirus film. The incarnation Godzilla 2000 Millennium is quite similar to the Giragoji incarnation, as such I will still be giving him this ability. There's obviously the Promiscuous Tail, which he's used to grapple on the Megaguirus, and he does not have the Spiral Breath. He does have energy absorption, however. For feats, he can tag a Mach 5 travel speed / attack speed fighter in the form of Megaguirus, and survived and escaped a black hole. However, of course, there are certain instances where black holes don't always apply to their real world counterparts. However, based upon analysis, I can say for certain, well, I shouldn't say for certain, but with enough confidence that the black hole in the film, although man-made, replicated enough traits of a black hole according to physics where I would apply this feat entirely. Now, lastly, I'll be going over the GMK Godzilla. Of course, this Godzilla is near indestructible, super strength, the atomic breath, nuclear pulse. However, he has a little bit different energy absorption, but all the same for Godzilla's. No Promiscuous Tail and no Spiral Beam. However, he does have a charged blue beam, which you could say is similar to Godzilla 90s is Charge Blue Beam. He doesn't have as many notable feats, however he does have a weakness where his internal organs, if punctured and if attacked from the inside, his atomic breath can shoot out of him and hurt him and possibly kill him. However, he does have super regenerative abilities, and at the end of the film, although reduced to only a heart, he is still able to live and quite possibly have regenerated. However, we cannot say for sure. However, this Godzilla is unique as it is the original 1954 Godzilla resurrected by the souls of those who died in the Pacific Theater. However, sources vary and say that it was only the people killed by the Japanese or the Japanese themselves. However, I will be taking all sources into account as the Pacific Theater victims of only the Japanese or just those of World War II who were Japanese. So all of those will be taken into account in the verdict. Now, on to Godzilla's opponent, of course Omega Flowey, with HP of 6,000, attack 19, defense 0, and possesses 6 human souls, level of violence 9,999, playtime 9,999, states that he is godlike. He can block a save file as a feat. His attacks include star-shaped projectiles, vines, flamethrowers, finger guns, pulling in files, bombs, lasers, and the weapons of the 6 humans, who, of course, human souls, their relation, and he can use their weapons. And he can reload saves. A feat he can include is stated that he played over and over again, and he killed everyone in the underground in what is assumed every way possible. However, for a weakness, he is still he's still bound to the underground and cannot escape, as he needed another human soul to break the magical barrier, so he is limited by a form of human magic, and he can be hurt. However, this is after the souls started working against him, which will be a critical analysis later on. But we've gone over Omega Flowey. It wasn't as long as Godzilla since I'm only going over one incarnation of Flowey, which is the only incarnation we have. We're not going over any AUs, fan-made, stuff like that, just over the stuff we see in the game. Now, let's get into the match then, shall we? Now I will introduce you to the battlefield both characters will be assigned to combat each other in if put in a hypothetical battle. It will of course be on even fair ground, not talking about the actual Earth itself, but just in an area of land. And there will be no amps for either characters, so no power plants, no lightning, no extra souls, no extra timelines, and no franchise/universe specific rules, meaning Godzilla universe exclusive rules do not apply to Undertale, and Undertale universe specific rules do not apply to Godzilla. As such, both characters will be working within their standard abilities, and I should also preface this that this may be a quote-unquote limiter against Omega Flowey. However, if time travel is used, it resets only to the beginning of the battle. And my reason is why is because, of course, we're taking these from 2 different universes, so we're not putting Flowey in the Godzilla universe, and we're not putting Godzilla in the Undertale universe. Therefore, their universe-specific rules are not applied to one another. And saying that if Omega Flowey can just reset the timeline before the battle even started to kill Godzilla, because he is able to reset the Undertale universe's timeline, is a no-limits fallacy, as Flowey was only shown to reset time and then go back to his base stats, which aren't even that powerful to begin with, as well as he wasn't able to jump out of other timelines and rework the time stream in a way where it was beyond just going back in time, resetting himself and everything else. And for a victory to be announced, the winner must have completely destroyed the other, or of course the opponent must be rendered unconscious or completely unable to battle. So, let the battle begin! After some proper analysis of the lab with our team, as well as properly measuring their feats, and concluding what are the most likely scenarios to happen on an even battlefield, we can conclude that the winner would be... well, I mean, for my channel, I think you know who it is. I mean, it's pretty obvious. Now, my reason behind the, decision if you could call it that, or I could say the obvious twist that Godzilla would beat Flowey is to say that Flowey just time traveling back in time to kill Godzilla before he mutated into Godzilla or kill a weaker Godzilla is a no limits fallacy, because you're either time traveling to another dimension with a different Godzilla, as we're only comparing the 3 Godzillas by themselves in a separate area. That means like there's no other universes with other Godzillas Flowey can kill and say he killed a Godzilla. And of course, even if Flowey went back in time and reset everything, he would be at his base stats, which against a Godzilla source or even a weaker Godzilla, he is still not going to be able to beat Godzilla. Not to mention the fact that Flowey compared to Frisk, who is an average child, is not even that tall, so Flowey isn't that big anyway. Even if he could bolster his size, and if we scaled him to a Godzilla-esque size, that still wouldn't really do anything to his strength or abilities, as they wouldn't scale accordingly. And saying that Flowey killed everyone in the underground isn't that impressive, because most of them, as you have to complete a genocide run, you have to kill every single monster in all the areas of the underground, and doing that is you're pretty much killing off fodder creatures. At that rate, however, there are notables like Sans and Undyne. However, Sans and Undyne aren't even that strong, or even on like that planetary or galaxy level feats like any characters in the Godzilla series or other series. So even trying to compare Sans or Undyne isn't really that good of a scalable feat. However, people would say that you can't use Flowey in a versus battle unless you follow Undertale's rules. So even if we are to levy the fact that let's say Flowey has the universe specific rules of determination, blah blah blah, then I would say the perfect counter to that, if you're gonna fight against a Godzilla, would be GMK Godzilla. Why? Because he has a ton more souls inside his body that are manifesting inside him. That's either everyone who died in the Pacific Theater of World War II, all of the people in the Pacific Theater, or really just all people in general killed by the Japanese in World War II, or just the dead Japanese of World War II. So I think any history buff, I'd say I could probably go ask Alex for this, but Alex could probably pick up statistics for amount of people killed by the Japanese Empire during World War II, or how many people died in the Pacific Theater in general, or just how many Japanese overall died in World War II. It really doesn't make a difference. Godzilla has way more human souls powering him next to Omega Flowey, and we would say that this is a no limits fallacy, as we do not know how powerful Godzilla would be in the underground. However, of course, that is why universe specific rules are usually not included in versus battles, because of that specific fact, where if you apply one universe specific rules, then it might be applied to the other character, and as such you get into a whole lot of ifs, maybes, I don't knows. But at the end of the day, when it comes to it, on an even playing field fighting against each other, Godzilla 3 times is gonna beat Omega Flowey, and even any of the weaker incarnations are still gonna beat him, predicated on feats alone, as well as Omega Flowey's lack of feats, as well as inconsistency with his abilities. But that's all, guys. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't, check my DeviantArt, my Twitter, my Instagram, yada yada, you all know that jazz. I'm Zemzilla, and I'll see you guys next time.